Today, the transformation we are looking at is a rotation, which is a turn around a fixed point called the center of rotation. The figure rotates at a specific angle and a specific direction. So we have three main degrees of rotation that we're going to be looking at. There are obviously more. But just so you know, each quadrant is 90 degrees. If you go all the way around and end up back where you started, that's 360 degrees. So moving one quadrant would be 90 degrees. All right, so number one, the 90-degree rotation is if we have a pre-image in quadrant 1. Remember, here's quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Labeling your quadrants. Let me zoom in a little bit on that. All right, so our pre-image is going to start in quadrant 1, and if we rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise, that's going to land us in quadrant 2. Now keep in mind, counterclockwise is what we're going to start by looking at. Clockwise, if I moved the triangle in quadrant 1 90 degrees clockwise, we would end up down here in quadrant 4. All right, so the rule is if we start with x comma y with our ordered pair, the rule is to switch your x and your y and change the sign of the new first number. All right, so let's look at number 1. Go ahead and plot your vertices for the triangle, and then we will rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Again, make sure you're labeling your vertices. A, and then B is 6, 5. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's B. C is 4, 1. So we are fully in quadrant 1. They won't always start in quadrant 1, the pre-images. So keep that in mind. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now, again, if I am in quadrant 1, I can expect the final image to land in quadrant 2 since this is counterclockwise. If it is not stated counterclockwise or clockwise, you're always going to go counterclockwise. Okay, so that's kind of weird. If it just says rotate 90 degrees, you assume it's counterclockwise. Okay, so our rule states, it's good to memorize the rules for these, is to flip the ordered pair and change the sign of the new first number. So A, which is 2, 7, I flip it, 7, 2, and then I change the sign of the new first number. Why do I say the new first number and not just the x? Well, it was a y, so that kind of gets confusing. You're like the old x, the new x, so that's why I just say the new first number. So let's go ahead and plot -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. +2. Did it land in quadrant 2 like we thought? Yes. All right, B is 6, 5, so I flip the ordered pair to be 5, 6, and then I change the sign of the new first number. So -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that will give you your B prime. Remember, the prime indicates it's the final image. Last one, 4, 1, flip it. 1, 4, change the sign of the first number to a -1. Go ahead and connect your final image and shade it in. All right, so that one's pretty easy because everything's positive. Let's look at number 6. Number 6. I'm not going to plot because that takes a while. Let's just look at changing the ordered pairs using our rule. So first, T is -3, -1. I flip it, -1, -3. Then I change the sign of the new first number, and I leave it as a little plus. You don't have to. I just like going in that order. Use 0, -2, flip it, and then I change it to a plus. The reason I do it in 2 steps is because it does get confusing once we learn our other rules for the different degrees, and then we add in reflections and all of that. We will be looking at multiple transformations with these, which would be a rotate and then a shift, or a rotate, a reflection, and then a shift. So last one, V, flip -2, -8, flip that to become -8, -2, and then I change the sign of the new first number to +8, -2. Last one, -7, -5, change the sign of the new first number. That's what you have to remember. All right, going back to our rules, let's go ahead and look at 180 degrees. Looking at our quadrants, our pre-image is in quadrant 1. If I shift it 90 degrees counterclockwise, I'm in quadrant 2. 90 more degrees lands me in quadrant 3. Something to remember with the 180 degrees is that it's always diagonally across. So if you start in quadrant 2 and shift counterclockwise 180 degrees, you'd end up in quadrant 4. So they're always diagonally across for 180. All right, the rule is if you start with x comma y, all you have to do for this one is change all of the signs. So you don't have to flip any of the numbers, you just change all of the signs. So if they're both negative, they become positive. What would happen if we're in quadrant 1 and I'm going to rotate 180 degrees clockwise?
Ms. Carskadden, please report to the bus lot. We have parents of your students waiting for their materials. Thank you.
Anyways, if we rotate 180 degrees clockwise, now we're moving in this direction. So 90 degrees clockwise would be quadrant 4. 180 clockwise would be quadrant 3. So 180 counterclockwise is the same as 180 clockwise. So you will use the same rule. Let's go ahead and write that down. So that's pretty easy there. We'll talk about the clockwise rotation for 90 and the clockwise rotation for 270 as well. And remember, starting here and ending up in quadrant 2 is going to be a 90 degree counterclockwise. If I moved this shape 90 degrees clockwise, I'd end up down here in quadrant 4. It will be a different rule for this one. All right, let's look at an example of 180 degrees. Number 2, again, they don't list if it's counterclockwise or clockwise because it doesn't matter. Actually, let's do number 4. They will never list that. Or typically for the worksheets we'll be using, they won't list if it's clockwise or counterclockwise for 180 since it doesn't matter. Anyways, all you do, if we have 3 comma -2, it will become -3 +2. Changing all of the signs. 6 comma 1, -6 -1. Last one, z is 5 -7, so it's going to become -5 +7. I'm not going to plot these for the sake of time. But again, when you plot the pre-image and connect that, and then the final image and connect that, they should be diagonally across. All right, last rule for today is our 270. 270 counterclockwise. Remember, counterclockwise is going this way. Look at the clock in your house. It's the opposite of clockwise. Here's our pre-image in quadrant 1. 90 degrees is quadrant 2. Add 90 more. We're at 180, which is quadrant 3. Add 90 more to 180, and now we're at 270 in quadrant 4. Now remember, this is only if we start in quadrant 1, and then we go counterclockwise. If our pre-image is in quadrant 1, and I ask you to rotate 270 degrees clockwise, what quadrant would you end up in? If you're in quadrant 1 and you rotate 270 clockwise, it's going to be in this direction. So here's 90, 180, 270. You would end up in quadrant 2 for 270 clockwise. All right. So the counterclockwise rule for rotating 270 degrees is to flip your coordinate and change the sign of the new second number. So the rules are pretty easy to memorize. 90 degrees counterclockwise is to flip the coordinate and change the sign of the new first number. 270, let's look at number 5 because we have some negatives, some positives. So let's rotate number 5, 270 counterclockwise. Go ahead and plot your pre-image. All right, so here we are. Pre-image is mostly in quadrant 2. So I like to use the rules, but I also am visual, so I like to think through it. Let's go ahead and label our quadrants. And I like to know, where should my shape end up if I start in quadrant 2 and I'm rotating 270 counterclockwise? Because then I can kind of check myself. So if I rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise, I'm down here in quadrant 3. 180 would be diagonally across counterclockwise in quadrant 4. Add 90 more and I'm at 270. I should end up in quadrant 1. Let's use the rule on these and make sure that's true. So I'm kind of doing two things to check if it's correct. So the rule is to flip the coordinates, so -5, 5, flip that. Change the sign of the new second number, 5, 5. Okay, well that ends up in quadrant 1, so that's correct. C prime. All right. Again, I'm just using the rule 270 counterclockwise. You want to think through it. Flip the ordered pair, change the sign of the new second number. I do it in 2 steps. Flip the ordered pair, change the sign of the new second number, 7, 1. And that's our D prime. All right. E, flip it first, change the sign of the new second number. I like doing it in 2 steps because if you try to do it all at once, flip and change the sign at the same time, you'll probably change the wrong sign. All right. Last one, F prime, flip it and change the sign of the new second number, 1, 7. Go ahead and connect and shade in your final image in quadrant 1. All right, let's go back and look at the rules for clockwise. We'll use the same problem. Let's look at 90 degrees clockwise. We're going to compare it with number 5, the problem we just did. So looking at our rule, now we're looking at clockwise. To rotate a image in quadrant 1 clockwise, that's now going in this direction. So it will end up in quadrant 4. All right. Notice 270 counterclockwise goes 90, 180, 270. Counterclockwise ends up in quadrant 4. If I rotated this exact triangle in quadrant 1 90 degrees clockwise, it would land in the exact same spot as if I rotated it 270 counterclockwise. They are the same rule. Look at number 5. Here's our pre-image. We rotated it 3 quadrants, which is 270 counterclockwise. If I rotate this image, pre-image, 90 degrees clockwise, it will land in the exact same spot. Remember, clockwise is now this way, and 90 degrees is just 1 quadrant. So let's just make a little note of that under our rules. You use the same rule as 270 counterclockwise. CCW stands for counterclockwise. So the same will apply for 270. If I want to rotate 270 clockwise, say this is my pre-image, 270 clockwise would go 90, 180, 270. It would land me here on quadrant 2. Notice that's the same thing that happens with 90 degrees counterclockwise. So under 270, let's write same rule as 90 degrees counterclockwise. This is for the clockwise 270 rotation. And then same rule as 270 counterclockwise. That's if we want to go 90 degrees clockwise. So I would maybe underline or highlight the asterisks are the clockwise rules. All right, so we will look at a clockwise rotation tomorrow for your warm-up. go ahead and finish your example problems using your answer key. Thank you, guys.